Maybe a jingle would help. Don't watch the Don't watch the monsters.
Welcome to part 2 of our Dawn of the Dead episode. But before we go into real talk, it's time for PP, our patron pitch. This is where we let our patrons know what they can expect on their exclusive patron feed, and we also let non-patrons know what they're missing out on. This is the month of October, our anniversary month. So, as we mentioned in the previous episode, no bonus episode per se, but there will be bonus content. And what that means is that the patronies are going to take place on our patron feed, just like they have the past couple of years. That's the award ceremony where we just give prizes to all the movies that we covered on the Patreon channel. So if you're a patron, that's kind of like a walk down memory lane over the past year. It's a lot of fun. It's like the Embries that we do here on the main feed, but
it's just the after party exclusive.
Yes, it's like we loosen our ties, we toss the jackets on the floor and kick the shoes off, and we just talk about a different set of movies, a little less mainstream. So it'll be fun, and everybody has access to that as long as you're a patron, whether you're on the $1 tier or the $10 tier, it doesn't matter. You have access to that. Also, on the $1 tier, on the Travoltis tier, you have access to our cutting room floor stuff. So anything that doesn't make it into the episodes that might seem interesting, it goes there on those cutting room floor segments, and you have access to that. Now, if you want access to more stuff, then you go a tier up to the Winonis or even higher, and that will give you access to our pre-recording notes. It'll give you access to our quick video reviews. This month, so I haven't recorded it, but Alex and I are going to be doing a dual QVR for the original Planet of the Apes, not the most recent one with all the CGI apes, and not the Tim Burton one with Mark Wahlberg as the main guy. No, we're going all the way to the Charlton Heston times. We're going to be talking about it together on a dual QVR, as requested by patron Jordan Mans. Alex, are you excited to see Practical Monkeys?
I'm fired up.
Yeah, none of the CGI motion capture stuff. This is...
People liked that modern trilogy, right?
Yeah, no, that's all joking aside, it's considered kind of like a high point as far as motion capture.
Oh, okay. Well, potentially it'll lead me down a path of checking those out finally.
Yeah, and you have to check out the Tim Burton one with Wahlberg. So that'll be as far as quick video reviews go for October. And then, of course, we have Contrarians After Hours. That's the spin-off show where we tell you about other things that we're doing with our lives, other things that we've watched, other things that we've listened to, that we played, that we thought about. Alex, what are you bringing to Contrarians After Hours this time?
At the time of recording, I will have come and gone to Dallas, going to the State Fair and the Red River Shootout between Oklahoma and Texas, which is a fairly significant annual sporting event in the country of America. We're going for my buddy Brody's 40th birthday. He's a big OU fan, and it was kind of suggested we all celebrated his birthday by doing so. So I will be recapping my experience of the game, but more importantly and specifically recapping everything I ate and drank at the State Fair, because that's what I'm really fired up about.
Please get a funnel cake for me.
I'll get 2,
One for you, one for me.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I will be doing something similar, Alex, by the time that we record, because we're doing this in advance. Because October is a complicated month, because I'm going back home to Peru, as I try to do at least once a year. So when I come back, we'll record the After Hours where I tell you about my latest trip. I'm already tired just from thinking about it. I'm sure it'll be great. We'll have fun. I always love seeing my family, my friends, but we're taking my father-in-law with us this time so he can see some of the Peruvian sites. Yeah, so it's going to be tourist heavy on this one. We're going to Cusco, which I love that city. I haven't been to Cusco in a good while, but I think I'm going to have to reckon with the fact that I am much older now. So whereas Cusco used to be the place where you go to party, now I think Cusco is just going to be the place where you go to like eat and drink, but not party.
Fair
I don't
enough.
want to be one of those guys that's just trying to mix it up with the young crowd. But it should be fun. So I will tell you about everything that happens on my Peruvian trip, whatever movies I managed to squeeze in maybe 2 weeks of traveling. So I'm sure I'll get some reading or watching done, at least while I'm on the planes and trains. We'll see. So my trip to Peru, Alex's trip to Dallas, funnel cakes. That'll be a very travelogue-like after hours. If that sounds interesting, or any of the other things that we listed sound interesting, well, go check out our Patreon channel, patreon.com/Contrarian Prime. You can look at our tiers and decide if you would like to join the Contrarian supplements.
$1, $3, $5, and $10 are respective tiers. Drop a buck in the proverbial tip jar, and it will unlock to you a world of patron goodies, specifically our Roxina miniseries, Maxi series, as we call it, and our Lohan miniseries. And as I've been cryptically speaking to, probably by the time of the next episode, it'll be public knowledge, but we're working towards some future patron exclusive projects. So if you've been on the fence or been curious about what life is, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain, but the exclusive access behind the curtain is definitely a good thing. And you'll feel like you're in Oz, seeing color for the first time with some of the stuff we do over there. I always get some good feedback on our bonus episodes and projects that we devote specifically to our patrons. So check it out. Give it a shot. You'll be able to tell pretty quick if you don't like it. And so it's low risk, but we're confident that based on our reviews and returns, we're confident we got some good shit over there. So check it out. Stay tuned to what the future holds. If you have any questions about it, just let us know. Hit us up on Twitter or email. To all of our current patrons, we love y'all oh so dearly. And we look forward to the potential ones that the future holds. So stay tuned, as I said.
All right, Alex, let's stumble to that mall and see if we can feed on some brains. They don't say brains at all in this. I don't know why I always thought the Romero zombies were like brains, but I guess that came later.
Yeah, I guess I don't know when that was introduced, but I'm trying to think if I've eaten brain of any type before. I don't think so.
Well, good, because this was supposed to be a transition. It wasn't supposed to derail us into
it's certainly not the type of brain that we're inferring here. So
let's go.
Let's talk about the fucking movie.
Spam.
Did you bring a can opener?
No, I guess I didn't.
Then don't knock it. It's got its own key.
Julio, I want you to know I resisted the urge during the entire run of Contrarian's Corner to make my position that this wasn't anything weird because it was happening in Philadelphia. It's just what happens there. But I feared if I had done that something awful like the Eagles winning the Super Bowl would have happened. So I resisted the urge.
I mean, I've never been to Philadelphia, so I would have taken your word for it.
I could have led you astray with that.
Yeah, I'd be like, oh, so that's how they roll. That's what the real Philadelphia story was about.
This, when I was browsing the trivia, this one made me chortle. Scott Reiniger's grandmother, despite his warnings, insisted on seeing the film in the theater. Reiniger accompanied her to the showing, and he said she made it through part of the opening apartment scene. He then asked her if she'd like to leave, and she told him yes. Shooting at the mall was suspended over the Christmas season because it would have been too costly to nightly remove and then rehang all the seasonal decorations. Did you stay through the whole credits?
I did, yep. They were playing while I was doing something else.
They did credit like mall security and different employees at the mall because they just filmed it overnight at a real mall. I just thought that was interesting. I mean, these credits weren't, like a Pixar movie or something, but
I was just waiting for the final shot of Nick Fury.
Oh, God.
Entering the mall.
So the actors got Christmas off. That was my takeaway from that last blurb I read there. So it must have been a good time overall.
So you think Romero is kind of like a white elephant kind of guy, or
he told the cast, "In the words of my father, you deserve to be disappointed. Merry Christmas." All right, man. We're entering yet another very beloved, beheld horror movie, the territory of which, and so I guess the hope now is we don't piss off too many people.
I think that we've established,
or that we haven't pissed off too many people, because I don't know where we're going to go yet.
Yeah. Well, what I was going to say is that as far as Contrarian's history goes, It's very well documented how much you love Halloween, how much you love the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and well, our Nightmare on Elm Street episodes with the remake episode. I mean, those might be a little more controversial, but overall, I think we're kind of as far as horror fans go, I think we're on their good side. Is this the episode that turns the tide? I guess we're about to find out, because going in, kind of like I alluded to in Contrarian's Corner, I thought this would be just right up your alley. And then you hit me with, oh, no, I don't really like zombie movies. And now
I've told you this before, man. I know we've talked about movies for many, many years.
If you didn't do it on the show, it doesn't count.
Oh, okay.
It's not
but yeah,
canon.
they're not particularly my bag. That's why I don't like own the ultra deluxe whatever I could get my hands on version of this, you know?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, maybe you will now. I'm really curious to see how this worked for you, if it did at all or not. And really, it is real talk, so we have to talk about how it compares to Snyder's version in other zombie movies, other pieces of zombie fiction. All that's coming. But before we get there, I have 3 rotten quotes, and I have Stu's audio. So you ready for
real
that?
quick,
Oh.
before we get there, I was about to say you had proffered the question of if there was like a series of these, because, you know, this is viewed as a sequel. And it's also one of those that people put at the top of the list of sequels better than the originals. This was a series by George A. Romero. There was Night of the Living Dead 68, Dawn of the Dead 78, Day of the Dead 85, Land of the Dead 2005, Diary of the Dead 2007, and Survival of the Dead 2009. So there you go.
I think it's telling that none of those other movies are really spoken about with the same level of admiration as the first 2.
There is Twilight of the Dead, which he penned the treatment for.
Is that the one with Pattinson?
This was in the 2010s, and of course he passed away, but it looks like the film is back in development and set to start production the fall of 2023. All right, Julio, let's hear it. Who didn't like it, and most importantly, what does Stu think?
Green splotches first. Critics that didn't like this, according to Rotten Tomatoes website. I'm going to start with Tom Hunn from Washington Blade, who says, even if one accepts the director's premise that the earth is a toilet and hell the sewer underneath, Dawn of the Dead lacks the coherence necessary to achieve its purpose. Is that what Romero is saying with this movie?
I don't think so. And also, this movie is very coherent. It's very, very blatant about what it is.
It all takes place in a mall. 80% of it takes place in the mall.
Now, I'm sorry. I should say, yes, there can be subtext to anything, and people can read into something, you know, what they'd like to based on their experiences. But like the story this movie tells in no way suffers from any sort of ambiguity or over subtlety.
I mean, the mall is a penis. I think that's very clear.
The mall is the patriarchy.
Yes. And there is so much symbolism in the fact that it's a woman piloting the helicopter that finally gets away from the mall. And the black man is the passenger guiding her to the future. All right. Next, Variety staff from Variety. Romero's script is banal when not incoherent. That's the second quote that accuses this screenplay of not being coherent. Coherent according to what? The rules of our world? Because this is not really taking place in our reality. So I think that Romero maybe gets a little bit of leeway when it comes to how he wants to tell the story. And then we're going to close the set of rotten quotes with Gary Arnold from the Washington Post, who says, between atrocities, the movie has its funny moments and funny lines. It's just difficult to relish the humor when you're dripping in so much gore.
There you go. I was waiting for you to get one review that focused in on the excess.
Yeah, can you laugh when everybody is just covered in chocolate syrup?
That's not what it is here. I have this actually pulled up right in front of me. So much of the fake blood used in the blood packets was a mixture of food coloring, peanut butter, and cane sugar syrup.
Man,
Owned, Julio.
how many people you think like couldn't help but lick their their makeup.
Oh, that would be so saccharine though. Cane sugar syrup, peanut butter, weird texture.
Yeah,
But
then after you're under those lights, hours and hours.
oh, imagine just how crusty and stinky people were. The excessive, honestly, you brought up Dead Alive, and some of the stuff in this to me was funnier than, more kind of slapstick than what that movie attempts to do. Famously, neither you or I were too high on Dead Alive, but that's a movie that tries to be funny in its excess. Mm-hmm. I found myself kind of laughing at some of the stuff in this too, because the tone has some issues from time to time, as we discussed in Contrarian's Corner, but some of the killings and the violence is to like a comical degree of excess.
Do you think that it's just easier to be in tune with the humor here because it's America?
It's a better movie. Yeah.
All right, well, let's find out what Stu thinks about Dawn of the Dead.
Hello there, contrarians. This is Robert Stewart from SWOProductions.com and the Stu World Order podcast. And yes, the movie I presented for the patron takeover is the original Dawn of the Dead from 1978, I want to say. I could be wrong on that. The reason I brought this movie to the patron takeover is I remember watching this movie when I was a teenager, and I thought it was this out-of-date, before I was born, goofy, silly zombie movie with blue zombies and Tom Savini macheteing zombies while driving through a mall on a motorcycle. But it wouldn't be until years later when I would rewatch it a little bit older and I realized just how phenomenal of a horror movie this is, with the themes that Romero was going for and the effects that Savini had to work with in 1978 and what he was able to accomplish, and just the claustrophobic atmosphere of this movie set in this tight little enclosed mall with these characters that you actually grow to care about. So I've since watched it several times in my life and I always like it more and more. I figured this was a movie that was right up Alex's alley. I believe Julio said he'd never seen it before, so it seemed like a no-brainer. Bring you guys Dawn of the Dead to watch. But if I'm being honest, why am I really bringing you this movie? It's because I live minutes from the mall that this movie was filmed in. I used to go there all the time pre-COVID, before we all started working from home. I used to get lunch at that mall every single day. It's a decent enough mall. There's a little bit of crime there sometimes, as can be expected from malls in the year 2020s, but it's a pretty interesting place. They've got a statue of George Romero there. Other than that, you wouldn't really know it was the mall from Dawn of the Dead. There is no gun shop inside. It's just a mall, man. You'd think they would do a little bit more with it, but nope, it's just Monroeville Mall in Monroeville, Pennsylvania. Anyway, that's my little claim to horror fame of where I live and what I get to visit. So I hope you guys enjoyed the movie. I hope you had a good time trashing it, because I know it has a brilliant reputation and a high score on Rotten Tomatoes. So I can't wait to hear what you guys have said about it. Have a good one, everybody, and take care.
That's awesome.
I didn't realize that today malls are considered, I guess, crime hubs.
Oh yeah, dude. That's like the Highland Mall over here that they turned into the ACC campus. That place was not dangerous. When I first, the neighborhood I live in was not particularly pristine when we first moved here in 2011. I remember going to that mall though one time, and I went to the GameStop because Fight Night Champion came out, and I was like, I got to get this, so I walked over there. But yeah, it was not good. And when they were building the ACC campus, I knew there were some issues from time to time, but now the neighborhood's, on the up and up. But yeah, malls in general, I do not recommend hanging around in the year of our Lord 2023. But that story about going there for lunch and shit, that's so cool. That's like so, not individualistic, because a lot of people went there, but for someone in our podcasting community to bring this movie to us and to have that kind of quasi-personal attachment to it, that's really cool.
Yeah, Stu, I'm going to be very disappointed if you don't have a picture where you're just posing next to that Romero statue. Because you should, especially since you like the movie. Here at the mall, if they had a statue of, I don't know, Richard Linklater, Alex, would you take a picture next to it?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We'd have to get one together too for like our
Yes.
website or something.
Holding the Boyhood Blu-ray.
But both of us are smiling, but doing a thumbs down.
Yes. All right. Well, so Stu likes it. Stu, like me, was under the impression that this would be right up your alley. I think that most listeners of the show probably have that mindset. Let's start there, Alex. I want to know, what's your beef with zombie movies?
I am positive we've had this discussion on some episode before that zombie movies just aren't like my bag.
It might have been during the live episode, actually. That's the closest I think we've done to a zombie movie.
But obviously, I fucking love The Last of Us, the game and the show. And Maggie, I'm a big fan of. If you haven't seen it, check it out. And I have fun with zombie movies. I do. It's not... I enjoy the genre of like slasher way more. I will choose a Halloween movie over a of the Dead movie 9 times out of 10. I need to go ahead and just cut to the chase. This movie's great, but it isn't like the one that it's not one that immediately comes to like mind or like the top of my head when like horror movie discussion comes up, or if you've ever been to my house and seen my horror shelf, it's not really adorned with any type of zombie memorabilia just because it's it's I think because like as a kid I would watch zombie movies like on Monster Vision with Joe Bob Briggs on TNT, I believe that was, and they didn't like freak me out like Jason, like getting stabbed or impaled with a piece of a gate and then lightning hits it and brings him to life and then he pulls a guy's heart out with his bare hand. I was like, oh my God. Zombie movies be like people like moving really slow and then like, yeah, if they catch up to you, you're fucked. But like in my little kid mind and, teenage mind, I was like, well, that's not going to happen to me. But there was something really scary about, Ghostface calling you and then showing up at your front door. So it comes from a place of what I watched in my youth and what really connected with me. And that for worse and much worse has carried over into my adult life as I'm still into professional wrestling and horror movies. But
we kind of like to set the baseline, like something like 28 Days Later and 28 Weeks Later. I mean, I know that they're not necessarily zombies, but most people, a fair amount of people consider them zombie movies, myself included. I'm sorry if it doesn't fit like the textbook definition of zombies, but that's, they look like humans, but they're mindless and yeah, they run. Okay. Like, does that take on the genre? Does that at least entice you? Because I think that that's fucking scary. That's scarier for me. To me, that's scarier than Jason. Like those fuckers running after you and they're like animals, but they're human shaped. I mean, that's terrifying.
And again, that kind of revitalization of the genre came at a point when I was already like in my late teens. And so like the foundation or like the molding had already been done. I've only seen 28 Days Later once and it was in college. And I remember thinking it was pretty dope. So I should revisit it.
I mean, Oppenheimer is the main character.
Oppie.
Yeah.
That opening shot I think it's the opening. It's fucking nuts where he's just walking the street of London and it's completely abandoned.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that. That was fantastic. And of course, Snyder's Dawn of the Dead. We're not going to get out of this conversation in Contrarian's Corner or Real Talk. The discussion needs to be had about it. I remember that kind of was viewed as a game changer a bit in the zombie genre because it was a remake but had a significant new spin on it. I guess where it settles now in my mid-30s is I'm a fan of plenty of zombie movies. I've seen my fair share of them, and some of them have worked with me more than others, but it's not where my heart lies. And very well I can be very passionate about some horror movies, and they're just not that. Doesn't mean I didn't enjoy watching this and don't understand its place in history, and also think it's pretty damn good. It's a bit repetitive in some aspects, but it's a good movie, and you definitely understand why it has the legacy that it does. I don't think anyone was expecting me to say I don't like this movie or I didn't enjoy myself. I'm expecting you to say you were bored to tears and not really
because I
down
can't
with what was
appreciate
happening.
horror.
No. It's not that. It's
you can appreciate horror. See our Texas Chainsaw Massacre episode. It's just that there needs to be something there that at least, echoes with you. And coming off of our Vikram episode where we were talking about issues in pacing and how that can just like feel agonizing, this movie definitely has a bit of quizzical pacing, and it's far longer than it needs to be. And in my head, like the second montage when they're shopping through the mall, I was just seeing you, slumped on your couch with like your pencil against your forehead, just like, So tell me, is what I'm thinking here accurate, or are you going to surprise me and say you had a good time with this?
We whipped them, didn't we?
That's right, Raj.
Didn't we? Didn't we whip them?
I did have a good time. I think I am suddenly feeling a little self-aware because I had forgotten about Dead Alive. Even though I referenced it on my notes, I forgot that, that is kind of a zombie movie that we talked about. And I, much like I did on the last episode for Four Brothers, where I kind of revisited our Pain and Gain episode because I was curious to see how I felt about Mark Wahlberg then versus how I felt about him after watching Four Brothers. And here, the same thing as far as, I don't know that I would call Dead Alive necessarily a zombie movie the way that I think of zombie movies. It's more of a monster movie, but there's enough similarities, I think. And so I guess if you're a longtime listener, or at least if you've listened to that episode, I'm already going to apologize in advance if I repeat myself, because my position is still the same, which is that gore is not enough to keep me interested in practical effects. As inventive as they can be and as fun as they may look, like that is not enough to catch my attention. And so when that's all you have in your movie, or when that's the primary thing that's driving the interest in your movie, in your narrative, it's going to be really hard for me to get invested. And then the other point that I probably made back then, and if not, I know I've made it whenever the topic of zombies come up, is that I was a big Walking Dead fan of the TV show. And that is what I think of, as far as modern take on zombies. And that's when I think of what does a zombie look like? What does a zombie do? What does a zombie represent? Right? And what does a zombie bring out of us? Like, The Walking Dead, I know there are people that just kind of like roll their eyes as soon as you bring it up, and there are people that will tell you, well, it was good at this point and then it sucked, or it sucked and they got really good. And I think that there's a solid like 3 seasons of that show that are really, really good once they kind of like got in their groove on every level. I mean, I think as far as like characterization and what they were doing visually, and what they were using the zombies for, which was is sort of like this force of nature that forces us to, as humanity, to decide, okay, are we going to rebuild as with trust, or are we going to turn on each other? And who survives, the person that tries to remain a good person, or the person that sacrifices his humanity to survive, to get ahead, right? And so like that kind of stuff. So I guess that's a long way of saying that I really like zombie stories as a genre, as long as there's more to them than just like, oh, and this is how we blow up this person's head, and this is how we do it again, and this is how we chop this person's arm, and so on. When it is about
documented, you enjoyed The Last of Us.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And that is, again, that's something that some people would say, like purists would tell you, well, those are not zombies. It's just some sort of creature that's controlled by fungus. But it's kind of like the same thing, right? And so I have that standard, and that is what the comparison goes against. I watched Night of the Living Dead a couple years ago for the first time, the first installment of the Romero series, and I had this negative reaction. Like I got it, like context wise, I understood why it was important, but I was also like, man, these are not zombies. It's a little bit what I was joking about in Contrarian's Corner, right? Like these are just people. They're just like really slow people and kind of very not skilled people, but they can't talk, obviously, but they're not the monsters that I think of when I think of zombies. And
monsters.
What?
I'm sorry, a Simpsons reference.
Oh.
It's been fresh in the house. I'm sorry.
Monsters.
So I knew that what I was getting into a little bit with Dawn of the Dead with this version, because I was like, all right, if it's a follow-up to, I did not know it was 10 years later. I thought that they came out like closer to each other, but still, right? Like I was like, all right, well, I saw Night of the Living Dead, and if this is kind of the way that Romero zombies act, then I might have a little bit of trouble getting into it. And then if you want to make it even worse, yes, I have seen that Zack Snyder remake and I liked it, and it is a very different take aesthetically from what Romero's doing here.
Oh yeah, it's a music video.
Yeah, but that's not a bad thing. I mean, you know, on either side, like I don't think that Romero's version is necessarily bad because it's not like it doesn't look or feel like Snyder's, and the other way around. I think that was really smart of Zack Snyder to just, you know, because Romero's Dawn of the Dead already exists. So I'm glad that he went and did something very different with just like the basis of, okay, well, they're going to be in a mall. I couldn't even tell you because I don't remember enough if Zack Snyder's version even attempts at being some sort of commentary on consumerism and capitalism or anything. I just remember that it was like, it had a good cast and it was exciting to watch.
If I remember correctly, it's been a couple years since I watched it. I think they just like end up in the mall because that's where the original movie took place. Like,
like,
there's probably more to
Dawn
it.
of the Dead.
I know there's more to it than just that, but you know what I mean? Like that's kind of, well, we need a Leatherface has to use a chainsaw, so the chainsaw is just going to be there.
Right. Ving Rhames is a huge George Romero buff. It's like, you know what? I saw that movie. They actually made it for a good while inside a mall.
While this movie was going on, I did, was it Richard Cheese? Was that the guy's name? During one of the montages when they were shopping, I started crooning "You mother, get up, come on, get down with the sickness." You remember that song being used? And
no, but I can totally picture it.
Yeah, it's the montage when they're all like shopping or doing different things, and it's this lounge. It's like a lounge cover of "Down with the Sickness."
Is it
Get ready to die?
Is this when we see Phil Dunphy having sex?
Yes, when Phil's going to town on that pretty young woman.
Yeah. Anyway, all this preamble sort of like to tell you that I would have bet also on me not enjoying this movie just because what I enjoy about the genre, what I enjoy about zombie movies is not what this movie gives you. You know, it's like this relies a lot on the special effects, the way that I felt Dead Alive did, where it's like, you know what, the story, the characterization, whatever is secondary. Not to that extent.
Good.
Not to that extent, but you know what I mean? Like there are times, long stretches of times in this movie where it's just like Romero and Savini having fun. And
yes, yeah, definitely.
And so
that biker sequence is a bit too much.
Yes, but here's the weird thing, Alex, and I'm still wrestling with it, and I don't know, maybe it's because of this show, maybe because of this podcast, these conversations that we have pretty much on a weekly basis, maybe because of the combination of movies that we've been watching. You know, we just did Double Indemnity a few weeks ago. As I was watching this movie, like what I had in my head was just the idea of what makes a movie timeless. And how can a movie be timeless, but not all the way timeless? You know, like I think Double Indemnity is timeless in a way that is superior to the way that Dawn of the Dead, you could say, is timeless. Like Double Indemnity, I feel like you can show it today. I watched it today, you know, and you don't really apologize for anything in it, or you don't really have to qualify any of its aspect. You're like, yes, it was made in the 40s, but it plays and it works. And it, you know, like Dawn of the Dead, there are a lot of things that as I was watching, I was like, this doesn't really work. And then I would be like, okay, but it was made back in like, you know, is it 68?
Night of the Living Dead. Dawn of the Dead's made in 78.
78, okay. Then you can just you give it a little bit of rope, right? Because it's like, oh, well, in the context of what movies were doing there, like this was really fresh, and can you blame them for just having fun with it?
Yes, but then also I would still say that regardless of the year it came out, like Halloween, which came out in 78 also, like that's like an all-time movie. Whereas, do you feel when you say stuff like that, you're not making excuses for it, you know? But it's like,
well, I'm having that conversation with myself. That's the thing.
Yeah, and people get so, Well, even that, we're talking about our feelings about movies here. And even with that, like, people are so, they immediately think if you preface something with, for the time, at its time, for a movie that came out in da-da-da, for an album that was released then, they always think like that means you're making excuses for it, or it's really not that good by modern standards, which isn't always the case. There are things that are absolutely timeless. Like, I'll lay off Halloween. Don't Think Twice, It's All Right by Bob Dylan. That song, no matter what year it ever came out, would be one of the greatest songs of all time ever written. I'm sorry, this has really nothing to do with what you're talking about, because I understand your like internal discussion. When I hear what you're saying, I can see someone out there immediately being like, oh, well, then it must not be that good by modern standards. And that's not always the case. Some things, yes, are timeless. Other things, it's fair to preface with it, and you can still get enjoyment out of watching it today.
Well, I think I would argue that in some instances, it enhances it once you have that in your head. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like, if I watch Dawn of the Dead, the 78 version, with no context, then the things that don't work bother me more. Once I factor in the context, then I enjoy it more, because I'm like, yes, this is running out too long, but man, they were doing this back in 78, and that gives me a little bit of admiration that goes outside the story, and it's just, a meta level of me enjoying the movie.
Dog. So La Jetée, like,
yes,
it's kind of good, like, as it is, but when you're like, this was from 1962, it's like, dude, there were people rioting in the streets when they saw this, probably.
Exactly. So the idea that Romero and Savini and these people, they went in, and yes, it's just kind of, Halloween is, yes, it came out the same year, but it feels a lot more polished, like more controlled.
Yeah.
And this one is more just slapshot. They just put it together. They're having fun, and it's like, fuck it. If this cut doesn't really match the next one, that's okay, because we're just having fun. And if you put it in context, it just plays so much better. I was able to do that when I was watching this movie, and I think that kept me engaged whenever the movie lagged. I was fully aware that, okay, this is going on too long. You could have cut this. I kept thinking, man, how is this more than 2 hours? Because obviously you can tell, like, story wise, they run out of things to do so soon. Just like, we're in the mall, we secure the doors. Okay, now what? Is it time to bring Savini yet? But still, like, there's like an inventiveness to the filmmaking that just kept me engaged. Now, why does it happen with Dawn of the Dead, and why didn't it happen with Dead Alive? Because you could make that argument for Dead Alive too, right? Like, it's not a modern movie.
I guess, yeah. Paul's hurled his phone at the wall at this point, but it's
well. Here's what I can tell you. This is still so fresh. Go ahead.
Let me just, let's say this about Dead Alive, or I will say this about Dead Alive. You can only make a movie like Dawn of the Dead once. You can only make it successfully and in the way this movie is executed one time. And I know that's, don't take that too literally, because I know there's a remake that we've referenced several times, but there are so many movies like Dead Alive, and that are still being made to this day, where the idea is like, oh, it's funny if there's like gratuitous amounts of gore, and it's funny that like these bodies are falling apart, but they're trying to eat. Get it? So my thought would be that, again, we don't hate Dead Alive. We just weren't as high on it as Paul was, and it's one of those that's kind of easy to, it's easy to poke fun at. Yeah, my point is, hearing your logic. And like, my whole thing with horror movies is I'm just very hot and cold, very picky choosy. So I'm taking myself out of it and just hearing your logic with what you're describing and kind of what we're looking at here. And when you compare those two movies, I can completely understand how that veil works for you in this situation and doesn't there. They're just, for lack of a better expression, it's apples and oranges.
Yes. Which one's the apples? Dawn of the Dead.
Well, depends. What do you like? Do you like apples or oranges more?
I am both. Depends on the kind of apple too.
Exactly. A green apple, a good cold green apple. That's the Dawn of the Dead in this situation.
What are you saying? I mean, you scientists.
Dummies!
You're suggesting
Dummies!
Hey, listen.
Dummies!
Them? Excuse me. Listen, quiet.
I think that the other layer, though, is that there is more substance, I think, underneath the gore and the practical effects and all the killing. It's not so much the criticism of capitalism and like, oh, isn't it funny that the mall is what they're attracted to? I think that just kind of, because I've heard so much about it. Like, I'd never seen this movie and I'd seen the remake, but I knew that this was the movie about the mall, and I knew that it was the movie that everybody talked about how it was Romero's really smart, really sharp criticism of just American capitalism and all that. And so that part wasn't it. It's not like that blew my mind. I mean, I can appreciate it. It's there. I think it's funny, but I felt it as this. That it went just a little deeper. Forget about capitalism. Just like these four people that eventually become three, just slowly losing their mind. And they're losing their mind in a way, in the same way that the entire world is losing their collective minds with this zombie plague that's just taking us apart. And so in that context as well, that when you're looking at it through those glasses, all the ridiculousness that happens in the second half of the movie almost felt like it was like it made sense, like on a thematic level. The thing with the pies, I mean, it's nonsense, but I was also like, yes, because that's the world that they live in now. They go shopping in this abandoned mall, and she's putting on makeup and trying on wigs in the end. Yeah, of course, Savini and his gang are just gonna be really silly. It was, from a plot level, it didn't make sense, but from a thematic level, I was like, yeah, I can appreciate it. It felt like there was something there in a way that, and I promise I'll stop picking on Dead Alive because I feel like we've done enough in this one. But Dead Alive was just, there was nothing underneath it. It was just, well, this is the next gag, and this is the next big special effect, but that's it. There's nothing that we're saying. And with this one, it felt like they were actually exploring sort of the lunacy that comes with the idea of a world overrun by zombies, in a world where the dead won't stay dead. Yeah, we all started losing our minds. In it's very poignant that at the end, Kim Forey is really close to just ending it because he can't handle it. He's been the one that's been handling it the best. And even by the time that he gets to the end and he's putting that gun to his head, yeah, I get it. It's like, I've been with you through the entire movie. I understand why you may think that this is not something that you want to keep going through. So there is that as well. Even in its excesses, like the thing that would bother me the most in other movies, which is just the weird over the top comedy. Even that didn't really bother me because I felt that I was kind of in awe, Alex. I was watching it and my mouth was a little open. I was like, what the fuck are they doing? It's so bold, right? Like, especially because it's his follow-up to Night of the Living Dead, which is much darker and a lot more, it takes itself so much more seriously. And then with this one, he was like, fuck it. We're going to have fun with this because the world is a circus at this point. And it works. It shouldn't, but it does.
You did bring up Night of the Living Dead. So while we're here, I want to go ahead and mention this because we would be sorely lacking in discussing some of the context of this film and just kind of some of the things it did if we didn't mention that, both Night of the Living Dead and this have black leads in it, a black male lead. And especially for the genre, that was not commonplace. Night of the Living Dead was a movie that came out in the late 60s, and, it obviously wasn't the 50s or the Clark Gable days, but at the same time, it's still something significant worth calling out. I know that the definition of irony is a white man talking about like racism and racial divide, so I don't want to seem like I'm trying to be too preachy or anything, but that's a significant deal. And especially, as much as I love Halloween, that movie's whiter than porcelain. And,
it's an interesting point, actually. I'd forgotten because the way that the first one ends, Night of the Living Dead ends, God, that's the best part of the movie. Like I said, I wasn't too crazy about it, but that ending is just brutal. And just the one guy that survives, our hero, is a black guy, and he gets shot by basically these cops that are coming in and they think that he's a zombie. And I wasn't thinking of that when we were getting to the end. And I was like, oh yeah, it would make perfect sense if Ken Foree just blows his brains out. Because I was like, man, you could accuse Romero of kind of recycling the same beat, from movie to movie. You have this black man that makes it all the way to the end only to just get shot at the very end. Even if in this one it would be by his own hand, it's still I guess I'm glad that he ends up going the other way. I don't know, I'm still not sure how you feel about that final turn where he decides to just go with the helicopter. But
are you ready for this? Do 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 do. You ready for the alternate ending?
Oh, there is an alternate ending? Was it shot?
According to the original screenplay, Peter and Francis were to kill themselves. Peter by shooting himself, and Fran by sticking her head into the path of the rotating main helicopter blades. The ending credits would run over a shot of the helicopter blades turning until the engine winds down. That is metal as fuck. Implying that the two would have not gotten far if they had chosen to escape.
Oh, I like that.
During production, it was decided to change the ending of the film. Much of the lead-in to the two suicides remains in the film as Francine leans her head out of the helicopter upon seeing the zombies approach, and Peter puts a gun to his head, ready to shoot himself. An additional scene showing a zombie having the top of its head cut off by the helicopter blades, thus foreshadowing Francine's suicide, was included early in the film. Romero stated that the original ending was scrapped before being shot, although behind-the-scenes photos show the original version was at least tested. The head appliance made for Francine's suicide was instead used in the opening SWAT raid, made up to resemble an African-American male and blown apart by the shotgun blast. You know exactly what I'm referring to, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that ending is remarkably bleak in every aspect. And I think for the things we talked about, with some of the fun they have with this movie, you don't feel like it would have been kind of a betrayal of the tone if they both killed themselves at the end?
I don't need both of them to kill themselves. Francine,
you're not asking for the world here.
No, but I would have been okay with Peter killing himself just because that's his journey. Again, when you put it back to back with the fact that the protagonist of Night of the Living Dead also dies, and he's also a black man, and I think that it's probably better. I like it better that we don't see him die in this one, even though we know that odds are that him and Francine are not going to make it much longer. But still, just, this man has gone through a lot, and he's being strong for 2 hours plus. And if he decides that he's had enough, I was right there with him. I was like, dude, you've had to shoot two of your allies in the head. I get it, that was fine. Now her, I don't need to see her die. That's one of my criticisms of the movie. It's stuff that I brought up in the Trench Corner, which is that she really doesn't get to do much other than being pregnant and complaining about the fact that she doesn't get to do much. So for her to suddenly, on top of the indignity of being kind of an underwritten character, to on top of all that, to just have this, to just die. I mean, it's a much cooler ending, I think, if she just gets on the helicopter and we don't know what's going to happen, but it's probably not going to be good, which is, the ending that we ended up with. Only there's two of them. I like that ending. I like, and I definitely like it better than the Zack Snyder version where we get to see there's no happy ending.
That movie does a pretty good job of right away establishing like anything goes, and also there's going to be some silliness to it. So I think the ending, I just think Snyder was obviously trying to take it in a different direction, and it's, he probably did his homework and knew about that original ending, and he's like, what if everyone dies? Let's see what happens there. And then he said, what if we add 3 hours to the movie?
I think that it's more disturbing, or I don't know if disturbing is the right word, just more powerful. It hits me harder if I just see these people almost certainly going to their death, but still there's like that sliver of hope that they might make it. That's more powerful than, as the credits are rolling, I see that the helicopter goes down and crashes. Just basically, the equivalent of what happens in the Snyder version.
I'm gonna try not to. I'm gonna try not to come back. I'm gonna try.
I wish the movie was shorter. I think that everything that I like about it, I would like it even more if it was more condensed. And there's a good chance that the things I don't like about it would also be less powerful because everything is moving a little faster. The Mattis rule, Alex, was that how badly did you feel the length once we're getting, on that second half?
So honestly, it dragged around the hour mark. It wasn't so much the second hour in total that I was like, all right, let's fucking go. I really, really liked the after Roger died and we kind of unannounced go forward a couple months and think, because like when they have like that living room set and they're playing poker or whatever, they're playing cards, I think, and she's more pregnant, and I love how much less hope they have and how much like that reinvigorated the movie for me. I did kind of like, what the fuck is going on when Tom Savini's gang showed up? But that added wrinkle of Steven like at the TV just trying to find the broadcast, and she's like, it hasn't been on for days. And he's like, well, it might be. Just that all hope is lost aspect of it, and the just dire mental state they were all in. That's like a needed boost for someone like me to keep my attention, is when you kind of boom, like at the drop of a hat, change the tone or like the emotions these characters have. And it's still too long for me in the sense of this isn't one, even though it's just, a half hour longer than I prefer, that immediately disqualifies it from I'll throw this on tonight in the background.
Can you imagine that 2:36 version?
I don't want to.
It's like, what else do you do with it?
I really enjoyed it as it is here. I could, for myself personally, if I did the Mattis cut, I could, cut some stuff out that shortened it, but I like what it is here. A 2 hour and 40-minute version of this movie could potentially ruin it for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's too much. I am honestly surprised, I guess, as my final point, that this is just a commentary on, I guess, the industry, not on the movie itself, but it's just so weird that this movie was not more easily available, either on physical media or on streaming.
Very strange. Like the Blu-ray on Amazon is $45.
Yep. It's like, what's going on? Who has the rights? Who's mismanaging this property? Is it the case with all of the... No, because I know, Night of the Living Dead is pretty easy to stream, or at least it was when I watched it a couple years ago.
Night of the Living Dead is on the Wikipedia page for the movie. The entire film is on there.
That's right. Yeah. So what's the deal? Why not Dawn of the Dead? Which so many people apparently consider it even a superior sequel. So
yeah,
I don't know. Figure it out, Hollywood, because I would like to own this. I would like to. That's how much I liked it, Alex. I would own it.
God bless.
And yeah, just it becomes part of that rare section of my movie collection that's horror.
So where does your score fall?
I praise it like a lot more than I didn't, but I'm gonna land on 3.5, which is probably lower than some people would think I was going to go with. But 3.5 is still. It's really good. It's just that it's also kind of unwieldy and, it's good for a horror movie. That sounds so dismissive of the genre.
Thanks for the handout, Julio.
Yeah, I know. It's good. It's okay. You want me to piss you off, Alex? I like it better than Halloween.
All right. End of episode. Shut it down.
It's good. 3.5. Maybe if I watch it again, it would be, it would go up to 4. But it's good. Take the win, Stu, and all of you horror fans. I liked it. I actually liked it quite a bit. I had a good time.
Well, Julio unfortunately said something completely idiotic leading into mine, so now I'm in a bad mood. No, it's good stuff. I'll go with a B+. We'll do a B+ on this. Translates when I log in on Letterboxd, probably 4 stars. I would like to have it in my collection, so some people need to get their shit together about where it's available.
Do you like it better than the Night of the Living Dead?
I think so. Yeah, it's Night of the Living Dead is obviously historic and has great value for what it is, but I think I think Ken Foree's really good in this, and it's
Yes.
I mean, he does that running punch and a crane kick in the movie. So, where's action star Ken Foree? Where's that timeline?
I mean, he's Joe Grizzly. That's it. You don't need anything
He is
else.
Joe Grizzly. He calls Michael Myers Daisy, and it's an amazing moment in film history.
He needed to pass that beast.
Well, speaking of beasts past, so comes to a conclusion the patron takeover, and what a journey it has been.
We started. Man, I don't remember what the first one was. But
I don't either. This is all you, Julio. So our patrons, we love y'all, and y'all know I put together stuff like our Roxina miniseries and our Lohan miniseries, and some upcoming projects that are kind of my brainchildren. But Julio put together this whole idea of this patron takeover, and he was the one that reached out to all of y'all to get your picks. So this has been his thing, and it's been obviously we wouldn't have it if it wasn't for you, our wonderful patrons. But Julio, I appreciate you putting it together as well.
Well, I'll pass along the thanks to the patrons that participated and made it so much fun. I think that it's built the foundation for something that we're gonna do moving forward. What's coming up next is of course our anniversary, and then after that we have a couple loose ends to tie from the live stream. But then starting January, we're gonna play a little bit with the format of the show, and this was it's informed in part by the patron takeover, how much fun we had, and how much fun you guys made it. A little bit of behind the scenes. The way it worked was obviously we solicited the picks, and then we collected the picks, and some of you put them in sooner than others, but the way that the schedule ended up being arranged was not so much by order of arrival, but more as in if we have 3 episodes a month, we were trying to make sure at least one of those episodes was kind of a mainstream pick.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't have, 3 Vikrams in a row. Just to think of a non-mainstream movie that we've done recently. And so if you go through the trouble of looking at the past few months of Contrarians episodes, you can probably spot like which one was the big draw that month. And it's like, look, it's not like we cared that much about downloads, but at the same time, I was like, all right, I want people to be hooked, and they're like, okay, well, I'll come and watch. I'll listen to the Jaws episode, and I like it so much that then I'll listen to whatever comes next, even if it's a movie that I haven't heard of.
Yeah.
So I think that in that way we all win, right? Like I don't know how many people end up watching Vikram to listen to the Vikram episode just because they were coming off Double Indemnity. Or, how many people end up listening to the Commitments episode and watching the Commitments because they listened to Princess Bride before that. And so that was the fun of it, I guess, to take everybody's suggestions and arrange them in a way that provided a journey, I guess, for just regular listeners of the show that, I was like, how do we keep them tuned in? And can we, because it's completely different than when we're just doing, we're doing movies from this director or movies from this actor, because that, it's a different kind of structure. But anyway, all that to say that it was fun, and you guys killed it with the picks. I think that we've established that we can tackle most things on this show, and I really like getting either text messages or audio files for that we could just play or read during real talk and kind of elaborate on why certain movies were thrown our way. So. Good stuff. I think that I would call it a success, Alex. The patron takeover did its job.
Agreed.
And now there's only one thing to do, and that is to give awards.
Yeah, to celebrate 9 years of podcasting. My God, we're going to be doing the Embries, giving out the awards for the best and the worst in the past year of Contrarians podcasting. And the field has never been so random and so crowded.
Ken Foree just bought a ticket.
Ken Foree's up there alongside Chiwetel Ejiofor for his performance in Four Brothers.
And they're the latecomers. there's some people that stake their claim really early on.
Oh yeah, as usual. Once Julio will send me the list of eligible movies, it all comes flooding back. So, but no, looking forward to it. Been again another great year, and so concludes the wonderful patron takeover. And of course, all of you listening right now, much love for tuning in, and but specifically a big shout out to our patrons who have made the past numerous months very enjoyable.
I echo that sentiment, and we will be here with a bunch of awards and a bunch of clips from the movies that we've done the past year. So join us for a celebration of everything Contrarians from November 2022 to October 2023. That's what we'll be doing next. Alex, get us out of here.
All right, so we're going to move into perennial plugs and start off by giving thanks to the Festive Years who provide our opening and closing tracks. They kick us off with Last Stand, take us home with Summer of 99. Be sure to head over to thefestiveyears.com for any and all Festive Years needs.
Our friend and fellow podcaster Hans Rothgieser is the man behind our logo. He did that little tomato that's looking at himself in the mirror. That's Hans's work. So if you like it, let him know. Reach out to him on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. He's at Mildemonios, Mildemonios. You can also email him, mildemonios@hotmail.com, or you can visit his website, mildemonios.pe. You can check out his other work. He's a writer, so it's a bunch of fantasy novels, zombie novels, very appropriate to today's episode. And he also has 2 podcasts, Nación Combi, which is about Peruvian current affairs, and Marginal, which is about economy. Hans, thank you for all your support.
LateNightGrin.com if you're a fan of the world of professional wrestling, the wacky world of professional wrestling. Told Joe we said hi. Friends Matt, Oracle, Rob, they are so kind and gracious to feature me once a month on their platform and allow me to promote this wonderful podcast we do here. So we want to help do what we can to spread their audience as well. LateNightGrin.com. And as always, we close with special thanks and abundant gratitude to our social media team, Coriari, who continues to just absolutely kill it with our warm-up videos as well as our quick video reviews, and our day oneer, Zoe Perez, who's helped every step along the way. Facebook.com/Contrarian Prime, Instagram @Contrarian Prime, YouTube.com/@Contrarian Prime, and of course our Twitters in the bumper. You can find us any and everywhere. If you haven't already, take a moment, subscribe to us on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube or Twitter. Help promote the algorithm and spread the word of the Contrarians. For the work, though, that Zoe and Corey have done along the way for us, we are eternally grateful. And most of all, we are grateful to you, the listening public, for tuning in to yet another episode of the Contrarians, where we're right and you're wrong, and we will catch you next time.
The summer of 1999.